Welcome to another episode of the Dog on It Trucking Podcast, where this week we have our guest is Cherie from Vegans Inc. And we talk a little bit about the founder story, and then we get deep into safety department analytics and what your company might want to do with the analytics that are available. First, before we get into all that, let's have a word from our sponsor, and then we'll get right into the episode. COVID-19 has caused all kinds of problems in the driver training industry. Well, KRTS and Safety Dog might just have a solution for you. A virtual truck driver meeting held over the American Thanksgiving long weekend. And if you'd like, see the brochure right there. And we have information for you down below in the show notes. Now on with this week's episode. And welcome to another episode of the Dog on It Trucking Podcast. Our guest this week, Mr. Cherie from Vegans. All right, Cherie, how are you, my friend?
Chris, I'm doing fabulous. I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much. Chris, I need to confess that, when I started the trucking business, there was a lot to learn for me. And, you were one of my sources for learning. I always used to go onto your website. I used to read your blogs. And later when you started the podcast, I started to listen to that. And, I did work, but there were a lot of ideas taken from you as well. So I'm honored to be here on your show today, Chris. You've become a very good friend. I know we've spoken many times. I've reached out and asked, seek advice, and always honored to be here speaking to you today.
Well, thanks, Cherie. I appreciate those kind words. However, the interview is about you and Vegans. And for our viewers today, just so you know, we're going to do a little bit of the founder's message, or I'm going to be asking founders questions as to why Cherie started his own company and digging a little bit there. And then we're going to get into the safety analytics for a trucking company, something that Cherie is very passionate about. So those are our two subjects. We're going to do them in that order. And with that, Cherie, why did you start Vegans?
Very, very interesting question, Chris. I just have to dive back into my past a little bit here. I've been a business person all my life. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. And I got this gene from my grandfather. My father was more of a working class, but my grandfather was a very shrewd businessman. I think in the whole family, I'm the only one who got the gene, I guess. And I'm happy about it. Until 2008, Chris, I used to be in the granite and marble business, or we call it the natural stones. We used to import granite and marble from around the world. I had a huge warehouse here in Toronto, almost 40 to 50,000 square feet warehouse. And we used to distribute all over Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa area. We used to distribute natural stones. 2008, the recession hit me really very bad, Chris. The granite business is you buy in credit and you sell in credit. And, you're literally going and begging your client for the money. And 2008 was blessing in disguise. When the recession hit, I lost quite a bit. Many of my clients declared bankrupt. And for 2 to 3 years, I did not know what to do, but we had quite a bit of real estate properties and all that. So, financially we were okay. But I decided not to get back into that business anymore. I sat home for 2 to 3 years. And finally, in 2010, 11, my wife said, enough is enough. Get off your butt and go do something. How long are you going to be sitting in the house? So I said to her that, I'm not going to be an entrepreneur anymore. I'm just tired. I'm just going to go and work 9 to 5. And so for the first time, I uploaded my resume at monster.ca. And I got a call from a competition who's in the market today. They made me the general manager of the company where I was overseeing 15 people here and then another 15, 20 back in India. I could not last there for 3 months of the way that they were running the business. Certain things did not gel with my own ethics and my own values. So within 3 to 4 months, I decided that I'm going to quit. And I said, to my wife, this is not something that I want to do. I'd rather go back into real estate investment. And that was the game plan. The day I left the company, the next day the owner called me and threatened that, saying that I was planning to get into this business and I had a lot of confidential information about the company. And if I started this business, that he's going to sue me. Honestly, I had no intention, but the fact that he said to me, I told him that's exactly what I'm going to do because you just threatened me. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And here I am, 11 years later, talking to one of the well-respected risk management consultants. So that's my short story on how I got into this business.
I think it's kind of, I want to say humorous in that one of our mutual competitors
Yes.
threw the gauntlet down. And when you had no intention of being a competitor, you quickly, it sounds like quite quickly, picked up the gauntlet and said, well, if that's what you think, then I'm going to do it.
That's it. Yeah.
That's pretty, I think it's pretty neat because of the competitor must have been afraid of you. You know,
I don't know what it is, Chris, but we come we come into a free world like Canada, where the opportunity is there, and you're rewarded for the work and effort that you put, and nobody puts a gun on your head and tell you what you should do and what you should not. And to me, when that person said that to me, I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. You had no right to tell me. You could have kept quiet if that call. Actually, indirectly, I thank him today because he made that call, because I wouldn't be having this conversation. So, a blessing in disguise.
yeah, and I'm one of the people that I don't fear competitors. I
Yes.
respect them, and you and I are competitors in some of our offerings and
Yes.
what we can do for clients. We're very much in the same circles for sure.
Yes.
But for instance, John Farquhar recently started up as a competitor of both of ours. And I respect John, and John's been on the show.
Yes.
It's just good competition is good for the industry.
Absolutely.
And I love it. It lifts all of us up. So
Absolutely.
cool. So that's how you started it. You've been in business for now, since 2011.
Yeah, 11th year. This will be my 10 plus 11th year right now. I'm running, and doing well, extremely well.
And you've been in business longer than I've been in business. I've only been in business for, God, is it 8 years now or 6 years? 6 years, I believe.
But you bring years and years of experience in trucking. Somebody like me, from a natural stone to risk management, it's a different ball game. But
it is, but there's several of the items are similar. Risk is risk, and when you started your own company, whether it was in natural stone or as a safety consultant, there is risk involved.
Absolutely.
And so you've stepped up to the plate. Awesome. Where did you get the name Vagans?
Initially there were two partners, and it was basically our wife's name, and that's how we came up with the name. And then later on, within 6 months, I ended up buying that partner out as well. We simply couldn't meet eye to eye, and here I am. Yeah, it's basically the wife's name, and that's how we started. And Vagans, it ended up, instead of with a W, it's a V. It's got something to do with trucking and transportation. So I don't know. It just everything just happened. So
it works. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's right.
Now, Vagans is much more than just a safety consulting company, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. I also have a sister company called Vagans Legal Services. I'm a licensed paralegal. Interesting story behind that is, in that 2014, actually, I decided to go and become a licensed paralegal. And I saw there was a huge need for that, to fill in that gap. Chris, of all people, you would understand this very well. You're an expert on the CVOR. The number one, issue in the CVOR that increases the overall safety rating is the conviction rate. When I started, for the first 2-3 years, and I'm trying to reduce the CVOR points and trying to do everything to, put risk management programs in place, we always found the conviction rate to be a huge problem. So one of my clients, I told him, can you give me your last 10 tickets so that I can go and do an assessment? I just wanted to go, kept on asking why, and to figure out what happened from start to end. I noticed something, Chris. Out of the 10 tickets that I went and reviewed, 3 to 4 tickets were easily, could have been fought in the court and could have won. And so my next question was, if the 3 to 4 tickets could have been fought in the court and won, why did this paralegal not go and fight and win it? What was the story behind it? So I started questioning it. And then I realized a couple things, Chris, that not all paralegals, those come out of school, are really good at advocacy, meaning that they can stand in front of a judge and make an argument or stand and run a trial. There are really good paralegals and really good lawyers that they specialize and they train themselves, they teach themselves to go and do that. But most paralegals are getting the license and just running it as a business. And like in any business, like even in your and my business, that was number one problem. And the second problem I found out, Chris, was that all of the 10 tickets were resolved in the first ERM, or we call the early resolution meeting. And that really shocked me and said 3 to 4 out of this ticket could have gone into a trial stage. And if that was the case, why did this paralegal did not take it to a trial state and go and settle at an early resolution meeting? And when I kept on asking why, I found out something very interesting. Chris, the Law Society has a regulation that says that if I take $400 or $500 for a ticket from you, I have to take that $400, $500 and put it into a trust account and should not touch that money until that matter is over. If it means that matter takes 1 year to finish, I'm not supposed to touch that money. If I do 20% of the work, I can invoice 20% and take 20% out of that $500, but not the entire $500. So what I found out that most people, they had the intention to go into the first early resolution meeting and finish this matter and close that file so that they can transfer that money from their trust into the general account. And now they can pay their bills and all those kind of things. Law Society is very adamant in their trust account. I've been audited by the Law Society. And the only thing that they focus is on how are you managing a trust account? How are you documenting it? They don't even like 1 penny difference in the trust account, and they take it very seriously. So, so what we found out, this is a major problem where, people had more interest to go and matter at the early resolution. So I said, you know what, I understand safety and risk management. I think I would be, understand the CVR related tickets really well. And then I went to school for 2 years, basically said the wife and the kids, you know what, 2 years, no evenings and weekends. That's what I'm going to go and study. And so I went and did my 2 years course to become a licensed paralegal. I got it in 2015, late 15. So I'm here. I'm running a very successful paralegal business as well. Just to tell you volume, some of the paralegals do anywhere from 40 to 50 tickets a day. That's the kind of volume that they do. So you can multiply the dollar amount that I'm telling and see the volume of money that's sitting in the trust account, just to give you a glimpse of where it is.
Yeah, and you're actually the third paralegal I've had on the show. I've had 2 others before you.
Yes.
Because it is a necessary part of our business, especially for CVR, being that the CVR convictions is 40% of the overall violation rate. You've got to control that.
Yeah.
So, but today we're talking about safety analytics.
Yes.
What do you do for your clients in the way of analytics or analyzing the safety events?
Great question, Chris. The topic that I wanted to talk to you about, analyticals, comes from a very strong business background. All the Fortune 500 companies have a CFO, CEO, COO, and they have a controller who are constantly crunching numbers. And they take those numbers, and all the decisions that they make are based on those numbers, which are actual data, and the success of the company is based on these. You and I know a lot of smaller companies, the owners are wearing multiple hats, let alone they have time to do any number crunching, period. They have no understanding it. Most people do not even understand, what we call the TCOR, or the total cost of risk. When I talk to clients and I say to them, hey, first thing you and I know when they go to an insurance company, what is my rate going to be? What is my rate going to be? What are you offering me? And I said, you're absolutely wrong. They could offer you $500 a month per truck. But if your total cost of risk is not controlled, you'll be paying $3,000 a month. And they asked me, what do you mean by that? I said, listen, you're paying, let us say the normal rate today in the industry is anywhere from 15 to two grand. I'm saying 1,500 per month per truck, apart from your cargo. But you had 5 accidents. You paid $5,000 deductible or $10,000 deductible. Now take that $5,000 deductible, add it to your cost of insurance. You lost revenue because the truck didn't go. Now take that and add it to your cost of insurance. you lost, repair. You take that and add it to your cost of insurance. So now you're not paying $1,500, you're paying $3,000 per truck or $2,500 per truck. So what matters is not the cost of the insurance, but what is your total cost of risk? And what we have been able to do is, monitor this, calculate this, to the T, kind of pounding them and in the back and trying to get these numbers and show it to the owners and say, you know what, don't think your cost of insurance is $1,500 per month. In fact, this year you had, almost $2,500 to $3,000, and these were all the costs that you could kind of mitigate. I'm just talking from an analytical point, just from a cost. You and I know, Chris, when you go and talk to a client, they look at safety as always as an expense. They do not connect it to revenue. So for us to put this analyticals and say, by hiring Chris Harris or Sriram Ramanan or whoever, we are able to mitigate all this. And now we have to take those data analyticals and show it to them and say, last year you spent almost 50 grand and just in deductible alone. And this year we control that cost because through proper training, proper education of driver, proper monitoring, and doing all this, and look at all these numbers that's brought down, you had 50 grand back into your pocket to your bottom line. That's just one thing from a cost perspective, basically connecting safety to revenue. And I think we all do a way better job to do that and show that analyticals to that company and the ownership. Then they stop looking at us as a cost, but now they look at us as an investment, which is kind of very crucial. That's number one. The second thing, the heartbreaking, hard acceleration. Chris, you and I know in today's world, insurance companies are not interested at looking at a lipstick on a pig anymore, meaning they're not interested in a fancy paperwork anymore. They're sick and tired of it. They say, yeah, we know you guys sat overnight and you did a fancy work. You got some consultant to come here and put all this paperwork. But the paperwork that you're showing me is not correlating to the numbers that I see on the FMCSA. I'm not seeing that CVR. I'm not seeing those reflecting. The only thing that is going to change those things is the driver behavior. So most insurance companies, point blank, they're telling, stop doing these stupid things, get back and change driver culture and behavior, and come and reduce the frequency. That's what they're coming in. How do we do this? Again, we track all these data analyticals. Our good friend Ward Walkington has his own driver scorecard. There's a lot more coming out like that, which are phenomenal tools that we can take and not just say I'm having all this, but what are you doing with it? Are you kind of dissecting it? Are you truly identifying those risky drivers and changing their behavior, if not letting them go? And then you will see more and more insurance company going to start asking for those kind of things where they want to connect directly from the ELD data and to understand driver behavior. And that's the way it's going to be happening. So I see companies, the way we are running Wagon Sync right now is we're becoming more a data analytical company, trying to gather different data points. We are actually building something as well, and on the pipeline. It's too early for me to talk about it, but connecting different points. Just to give you on a high level, I think there are three areas that we need to understand from a data analytical points in hiring a driver. One, taking his past behavior is so crucial. Driving is a behavior. So going back into a CVR and abstract and seeing the driver behavior for the last 2 to 3 years is so crucial in predicting what he's going to do moving forward. That's number one. His electronic logs. When we used to do paper logs, Chris, people used to say, ELD has come in, it is capturing everything. We do not need log auditing to be done. It is so not true. You need log auditing done even more than you had a paper log. And I'll tell you a simple reason why. When auditor came in and you gave them the paper log, auditor has to sit and figure out all the violations on their own. You either had 100 trucks, and if they take a sample of 30, 40 drivers, they have to sit and figure out, did he exceed his 770? Did he add an hours of service violation? Did he add a form and manner? Now what auditors are doing? Oh, you're using Keep Trucking. Can you pull up the edit report? Can you pull up the violation report? Can you pull up the unassigned report? Can you pull up the unplugged report? And they're going to sit there and say, holy shit, because you simply can't edit. Everything is timestamped. So it's beautiful that ELD came in, because now the company has to change the driver behavior, period. The culture has to change because everything is timestamped. So what we say to client is that we have to audit your logs right now. There is no option. And we're going to identify the drivers and we're going to pound him to change his behavior so that now that behavior changes, and then Then you can print out all those reports and give, because there'll be nothing in there because you changed those driver cultures. So you see how this data analyticals, even though you have millions of it, if you're not taking it and if you're not communicating and using it to make informed decisions, you're going to be royally screwed. Excuse my language. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that, but that's the way it is.
No, that's fine. And you mentioned our mutual friend, Ward,
Yes,
from Fleet Metrica. And for
that's
those
right.
people who are interested, I'll put a link for that in the
Yes,
show notes below, because that is a great scorecard and really
yes.
does help you manage your data and your information. So analytics, you talked about hiring a little bit. You talked about a lot of information there that can be used in a driver scorecard. You mentioned two, acceleration and my favorite of hard braking. What is it that you do with that information now?
Great question, Chris. When I started all this, I needed to understand what it was. I have a very good friend named Sammy Shacker from a company called Codsy Engineering. Great company, and they are basically forensic science, and they kind of recreate accidents. They work with all major insurance company. I'm not sure if you heard about them. We actually brought Sammy to our office and said, we're going to have a lunch and learn session. You guys are the physicists, and tell us what is this heartbreaking and how does this work, and kind of educate us so that we can take it and we can truly understand it. Sammy, I'm not a tech guy. I don't understand much of those fine details. My team does, but on a high level, basically every heartbreaking is not like danger. So a simple example would be an ideal, brake time would be, to safe brake would be 10 to 12 seconds, and the driver is but slamming the brake in 4 seconds before impact. That will be considered a hard brake. And so even though your ELD is splitting out, is giving out this heartbreaking information, Chris, you got to put it in three categories: high, medium, and low. Meaning, which were those 4 seconds heartbreaking, which were 8 seconds, and which were 12 seconds, what it is, and separate it. And so then we can go and educate the driver and say, listen, you had 4 seconds heartbreaking, and you were lucky. And the fifth time or sixth time, you're going to run out of your luck, and you're going to go and slam somebody and kill somebody. And taking this and educating and showing to the driver. Chris, we did our own driver scorecard, and I got to tell you this truth. We actually put, based on these three facts, the past CVR, current hours of service, and this heartbreaking, we created an Excel, nothing like our friend, but something in Excel. And we were able to predict a high-risk driver, with a margin of error of between 10 to 7%. That was pretty close. I thought that was very impressive what my team did. And we narrowed it down and said, 10 of these drivers are 300% likelihood of going to have an accident in the next 12 months. And the next one are like this. When I showed it to the owner, when I was doing a safety meeting, he says, no, Sri, you can't put this up here. You can't put the driver names up there. Drivers are going to freak out. They're going to quit me. I said, you simply have to trust me. I got to do this. And when we did this, very interestingly, most of these drivers stood up and said, can you explain to me why my name is on the red? Obvious question. We knew that was coming in. Then we had to show them and say, this was the reason, you were slamming the brake and you had this violation. And all of these drivers, Chris, and they said to me, you know what? I wish somebody had told me this, because, driving is a behavior. I didn't even realize I was doing this mistake. I wish somebody had told this to me. I would have changed my behavior. And we saw a tremendous change in those driver behavior. Many times I find owners have this vision in their head, but they simply fail to communicate to the respective parties or their team that that's what they want to achieve. I said, just open up and tell, this is what I want, and tell them, and your team is going to go and achieve it. And when we communicated with the drivers and started monitoring, those drivers started changing their behaviors drastically, because now they stopped driving from their subconscious mind to their conscious mind. Because how many times you and I have gone home not even knowing the direction? We just drive and we reach home. And these drivers started seeing, and we started seeing tremendous difference, actually taking the data that is available and educating them. A lot of work, but I think you put the 3 to 4 months of effort continuously, and then you sit back in a cruise control and just watch who is violating, because most of them start changing.
Yeah, and one of my clients, I was looking at their driver scorecards and reviewing it with the drivers individually. And it was amazing to me, hard breaks over 1 month. It ranged, and the whole company does the same lane.
Yes.
All right. So It's a fair comparison to compare one driver to another.
Yeah.
On one extreme, well, I shouldn't say it was an extreme. There was like 4 drivers that had more than 80 hard breaks in a month.
Wow.
And several drivers were down well under 20 hard breaks per month. And there was quite a few actually under 10 hard breaks per month. And when you share that information with the drivers and say, hey, driver, why do you have, the one extreme case was 96 hard breaks in a month.
Yeah.
And compared to the low of 6 in a month.
Yeah.
Like there's something just fundamentally the way that one driver with 96 is driving when you compare it to the other driver. And I reviewed those 6, by the way, with the one driver because it was up on video.
Yeah.
And none of those, for some reason, he was coming up to a few red lights a little harsh. That's what it was. It wasn't actual events that would have caused a crash in those 6 hard breaks. So it was just, to me, it's critical data. And if you're not managing it, you're really missing an opportunity to reduce crashes in your fleet.
We found a simple, plain communication, Chris, nothing else. They has to take it and simply, very firmly and politely communicate with the drivers, and we find that the drivers are simply listening to it. They're not challenging it, and they truly want to change. But like I know, before I got into safety, I used to get a lot of speeding tickets. I've been notorious speed driver, but what we call the iron-footed. And once I realized, I'm getting into this, and I see more about risk management. I kind of understand it. But there are a lot of people like me in the past and in the present right now who do not, it's like driving is like a second nature. They do not realize it, and I think that education would make a huge difference.
Yeah, and I really do suggest that all of the trucking industry needs to better manage their data. I shouldn't say all, but many, certainly the smaller fleets, the 50 and under, who don't often have a dedicated safety professional that manages it, you might want to consider having somebody manage it for you, which is exactly what Vagans does, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. What else should we know about Vagans, Sri?
Dedicated team of staff, Chris, I used to be a one-man show until 2015. We've grown up a team to almost 20, 25 people and still growing very strong. I kind of realized, there's only so much of me that I can go and, talk. And then after some point, that I kind of run out of it and, that I'm not able to go. So we have a very, very strong, dedicated team. We train our team, as I don't know if you've seen, I spend a lot of money bringing my team to conferences, and, I spend all those kind of things. And, there's a risk of losing staff and, your trained staff, but at least as long as they're with me, they're trained and they're educated and they perform well. And, they have to go. And I wish everybody, just like me, I started working for somebody, and someday I wish to become an entrepreneur, and I run, and everybody has their own goals and dreams, and I wish them all well. So we grow like that. We have something very interesting coming up. Unfortunately, we are at a stealth stage right now. Maybe this will be a segment for another time. I'm also getting into the autonomous trucking. So I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn profile, it would say, Director of Operation, self-driving trucks. Something very interesting. Is just a teaser that I'm throwing out right now, but we've spoken to some of them in the industry already, get some really good stuff going in there. So that'll be a next phase for Vagans Inc. Into truly mitigating risk, how the system is going to take over things. But that's much what the founder said that I'm allowed to speak today about it. But well, it is what it is.
What you may not know is that I'm a big Tesla fan.
Okay.
And of course, Tesla is really big into autonomous.
Yes.
And they've got their semis coming out and that. And I think I'm about to take delivery of a Tesla.
Oh, nice.
So, I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Although I did not, at $10,000, I did not get the full self-driving package.
Yes.
It's a steep investment. However, on my lives that I do most Mondays at 1 o'clock, I often talk about what's happening. There's True Simple and Locomotive, I think, is the other one, that are also large into autonomous vehicles.
That's right. You're right.
And then, of course, Uber, and they have a whole division that's looking at it. Waymo is looking at it. And I don't know if you know this about the Model 3 and the Model Y. The Tesla vehicles, when you lease them, you're not allowed to purchase them at the end of the lease.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you cannot purchase them, and that's because Elon is anticipating having a fleet of robo-taxis, and these off-lease vehicles are going to be the fleet.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Anyways, I know we've got all your information. If somebody wants to reach out and contact you, we're going to have that in the show notes below.
Yes.
Last word. Do we cover everything you wanted to talk about under analytics? Anything else we should know about Shree?
No, that's pretty much, Chris. We have a philosophy within Wagons Inc. Is there's two things we call communication and transparency. It's kind of that's our motto here. We communicate and we are very transparent even when we screw up. Just call the client and say, you know what, you're really good, but you know what, we screwed up. And straightforward. That's one model that we have in Wagons Inc. But otherwise, I think you covered most of it, Chris. I had the opportunity to meet many great friends and people that I've learned from this industry, from insurance and trucking, truck owners, and it's been phenomenal. This COVID did not stop us down at all. We've been growing crazy. We opened up a division in the US, in Michigan. We did some work for a large corporation in the US. So a lot of exciting stuff. So I'm excited.
Well, congrats. And thanks for coming on the Doggone It Trucking podcast, Shree. I really appreciate your time.
Yes.
And we'll talk when you have those stealth projects no longer in the stealth mode, please, we'll get you back on the show and you can talk about them again.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, Shree.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.
I hope you loved the show as much as I did. Please leave us a like, a thumbs up, a review, a comment, a rating if it is in your heart. Thank you so much. And I do really appreciate your time. And join us again next week for another exciting interview.